Field method is probably it's the classic method. You kind of need to be familiar with Sid Field's method. It's the general Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. You have your two plot points. Plot point 1 throws you into the new world after the inciting incident, which was the thing you had to kind of deal with. That made you react, which made you go into the new world. And then plot point 2 being what gets you into Act 3, the climax. So just like something really, really bad, just happening so bad that you gotta end the movie. All the worlds are colliding and all the problems are colliding at once, and there's just nothing to do but solve the problem now. But the Blake Snyder paradigm, also called the Save the Cat beat sheet or the Blake Snyder beat sheet, was super, super popular with screenwriting students. And you almost get made fun of if you follow this to a T. They'll actually have in the industry the Save the Cat screenplay scripts where if they see that someone wrote a Save the Cat basically beat to beat screenplay on their desk, they will throw the screenplay out. Like, this is a Save the Cat screenplay, so you don't want to get too involved with this. But I'm going to show you what it is anyway, because different ways of teaching whatever it might be. So basically, I did kind of steal a little bit of this. So the opening image is page 1. You can see that the beginning of every film sets the tone for the story. You immediately have a sense of the atmosphere and what you're supposed to be feeling and seeing and kind of what the story is about, just visually. Opening image, I usually don't think of as having the first page, not much dialogue maybe, just something that we see to help us kind of get in the mood. Okay, the main idea is the theme. The way that I use this is I will often have a character kind of state the theme to another person. And on page 5 in one of my Testimony of a Sea Dragon script, I have one of the characters say to another character, "Why do you always have to be the center of attention?" And that's kind of in a sense what the main idea of this character is, always wanting attention from like her dad, approval from the church, not from the church, approval from the dad and everything. And then at the end, she kind of has to not want that anymore. 1 to 10, roughly, think page count wise, is about the background of the story. That's when I kind of told you about setting up the situation, the status quo. You kind of get a background for, okay, who is this character? Where are they coming from? Think coal miner's daughter, where it's like, okay, we see her with the coals and we see with the coal miners and we see the world that she lives in and how poor she is and how her family runs and how this guy that she ends up liking kind of where he situates within that world. Okay, 12, set the story in motion. The coal miner's daughter, she's growing up. She meets this guy. In one of my Testimony of a Sea Dragon script, the dad that this Noelle, the protagonist, is trying to impress is like, hey, institutions suck. Let's bomb a church. They're a last institution. I hate God. They're ruining America. Blah, blah, blah. It's complicated in the story, but he's like, we're going to bomb a church. That sets the kind of story that we're going to be dealing with in motion. How does our character react to the inciting incident of bombing the church? Blake Snyder calls this the catalyst. Now, in my debate sequence for, say, Testimony of a Dragon, I had it where the girl's like, Dad, pick me. I want to bomb the church. I'm really cool. Don't you like me? And he's like, I don't want to hire you, my daughter, to bomb the church. You're a loser. And you'll just have to read the script to find out what this all means, because it's kind of gibberish. But just know that she has to deal with, my protagonist has to deal with the decision of, okay, how am I going to prove myself to my dad? Because I really, really want to bomb this church. I got to show him that I'm really good and really good at being a gang member. And eventually she does. At the end of the bait sequence, she decides that she will do anything to show off to the dad, and she ends up destroying his prized chicken with a gun. And it's really weird. I don't even know why I'm using this as an example, but anyway, he's like, all right, fine, you will bomb the church. And it gets us into Act 2. So Act 2 is kind of like when the story really begins, when the journey really begins. Usually it's called, in another sequence, Intro to the New World. And you kind of introduce a little bit of a B story. You might introduce your other main players who are side characters. You might introduce a romance. You might have fun in games. Everything's going great. Everything's working smooth. And then the midpoint, or sometimes called the midpoint reversal, is things aren't going so great and smooth anymore. And after that, bad guys close in, gets really rough, all is lost. You have Dark Night of the Soul, where the character's really working through their want versus need issues. All the things kind of culminate into Act 3, where things are getting very, very dangerous and intense, and the characters kind of run up with all their problems. Faye has to face them. Then we have the finale of the facing of the problems in the new world, and then the final image, which kind of ends the story, and it's usually very beautiful. It mirrors the opening image, but it's a little bit different. Often takes place in the same situation. My opening image for Testimony of the Sea Dragon was at a beach. The final image was at a beach. The only difference is in one, she's in a coffin.